With tears in my eyes, I begged my ex-husband to give me a second chance after I cheated on him. I truly hoped that my sincere regret could somehow fix things, but he just looked at me and quietly said he couldn't forgive me because I had broken him from the inside. Those words still echo in my mind. I was standing in the kitchen when he gripped the glass so hard it cracked in his hand. The shards cut into his skin and blood started dripping. He didn't even flinch. He just said, "You've got a hickey." Then he grabbed a towel, wrapped his hand, and walked out of the house without looking back. The door slammed shut, and for a second it was so quiet I could hear the blood hitting the floor. My oldest son saw everything. He stood in the doorway staring at me, then just turned around and left. I didn't move, didn't try to say anything. I just sat down and stared into nothing. That was the moment I realized I'd truly wrecked everything. Not just the marriage, myself too. If someone had told me 3 years ago I'd be this stupid, I'd have laughed. I was 42. We had 5 kids. We'd been together since we were 19. Not perfect, but solid. He was always there. Worked 60-hour weeks, but still cleaned the house on weekends, made breakfast, let me sleep in. We argued. Yeah, got mad sometimes. But we always found our way back to each other. I knew he loved me. And I loved him, at least back then. Things weren't perfect in the bedroom. He wanted it more than I could give. I was tired. House, kids, everything. He'd joke about it, sometimes complain. I'd get snappy. Looking back, I think he just wanted to feel close. I was the one pushing him away. When our 3 oldest left for college, the house got way too quiet. I felt useless. The 2 younger ones were teenagers, barely needed me. My husband noticed I was slipping and suggested I get a job. So I did. I needed something to pull me out. I got a position in customer support. Nothing fancy, but after 20 years at home, it felt like air. I started losing weight. I smiled more. I ended up spending a lot of time with younger coworkers, girls in their mid-20s. They were loud, funny, always talking about guys and dating fails, trashing boring husbands. Eventually, they started saying things like, "You could do better," or "Why are you wasting yourself on a guy like that?" At first, I laughed it off. Then I started listening. There was one guy at work, my age, fit, confident. He flirted a little. One day, he called my husband a beta pretending to be alpha. I didn't know how much that line would mess with me. It just felt good to be noticed. That feeling, that I was still attractive, still a woman, and not just someone's mom, it started getting to me. I got annoyed when my husband asked me to cuddle. I'd avoid his touch, find excuses to stay out late after work. Then came the lunch that went way too long. My husband was waiting for me in the kitchen. "Where were you?" he asked calmly. I lied. For the first time. He didn't say anything, just got up and walked away. I felt fear then, but not the fear of losing him. The fear that he knew. And still. The next day, I went to see that guy from work. I didn't plan for it to go that far. In my head, it was just coffee, just some flirting, nothing serious. I wasn't trying to cheat. But between I wasn't going to and it already happened was one small moment where I just gave in. He made the first move, touched my hand, then kissed me. And I didn't pull away. I didn't even think. It just happened, and I let it. At first, I felt alive. Weird word, but I don't know how else to describe it. I felt like someone again. Like someone wanted me. Not just as a mom, but as a woman. We'd meet in his car, during lunch breaks, sometimes after work. I was 42, but through his eyes, I felt 25. At some point, I stopped thinking about the fact that I had a husband and kids. It was like flipping a switch. Everything split into 2 separate lives. At home, I got cold. My husband still tried. He'd ask about my day, suggest we go out, try to sit close. I brushed him off, made excuses, got annoyed that he even cared. I can't explain how I got to that point being so cruel. I didn't yell, didn't fight. I just shut down, pulled away, looked at him like he was a nuisance. And he noticed. I could see it in his face. Sometimes he'd ask something and then look away like he didn't even want to know the answer. One night he said he felt like he was losing me, and I just said, "Don't be dramatic." That's it. I remember him nodding, turning around and walking out of the room. We didn't speak again that night. I kept seeing the guy from work. Sometimes he'd say nasty things about my husband, how he looked, how he was a weak man for not being able to keep me. And back then, I laughed. Really. I thought it was funny, even though something inside me was already starting to feel wrong. Then the problem started. My husband got suspicious. He started calling more, asking where I was. I got annoyed, accused him of being controlling. But really, I was scared. Scared he'd figure it out. And honestly, he pretty much did. That night, I came home late. There was a mark on my neck from the guy. I hadn't even noticed it. Or maybe I didn't want to. My husband was already in the kitchen staring at me. And yeah, that moment happened. The one I already mentioned. The glass, the blood. You've got a hickey? And then he was gone. Just like that. The kids were home. My oldest saw it all. The girls were hiding in their rooms. The whole house felt like someone had died. But no one cried. Not even me. I just sat on a stool and stared at the wall. I didn't try to explain. Didn't call my husband. Didn't try to fix anything. Later that night, I called the guy and yelled at him. He just laughed and said, "It was marking my territory." I felt sick. Like actually sick. For the first time in this whole mess, I felt disgusted. At him. At myself. At everything. When my husband came back from the hospital, his hand wrapped up, he didn't scream or rage. He just looked at me and asked, "How long has this been going on?" I didn't lie. I said, 4 months. He stared like I wasn't even there anymore. Then he walked around me, leaned in close, and said quietly, "I want a divorce," and walked out. I sat there alone in the kitchen, and I still didn't realize that this was only the beginning. He left. The next day, he packed his things and rented an apartment just a few blocks away. Didn't say anything. Just packed up and drove off. I sat in the bedroom watching through the window as he loaded the car. No drama, no yelling. Just silence. And that silence was scarier than anything he could have screamed at me. The boys wouldn't look me in the eye. The older girls stopped replying to my messages. The middle one was the only one still living with me, because of college. But even she was distant. She talked to me politely, but like I was a stranger. The house felt cold, not because of the weather, but because of the atmosphere. Everyone just stayed quiet, like they were waiting for me to disappear. And him. He was just gone. No scenes, no breakdowns. He only contacted me for practical things. School, the kids' stuff, money. Everything was short, emotionless, and to the point. Like we hadn't spent 2 decades together. Like I was some random woman who used to live in his house. That hit hard, but I still told myself it was temporary. That we'd find our way back. My affair partner started coming to the house. At first, he asked if it was okay. Then he just started showing up. The boys went completely silent when he was around. He ignored them the same way they ignored him. Eventually, he acted like it was his place, hanging up his jackets, sprawling on the couch, eating out of the pots without asking. And me? I let it happen. By then, I already knew he wasn't who I needed, that this whole thing was a mistake. But I was scared of being alone, and even more scared to admit that I'd ruined everything for someone who wasn't even worth it. I was angry. At him, at myself, at everyone. I started snapping at the kids, being short and cold. One day, my youngest son just looked at me and said, "You're not the same anymore." I didn't know what to say. Then something happened that I'll never forget. My ex-husband came to pick up the boys, and the guy was still in the house. I had asked him to leave before they came down, but he ignored me. Sat in the kitchen and poured himself some coffee. My ex walked in, saw him, paused for a second, then smiled. A real, calm smile. "Not now," he said, "but soon." Then he left. No drama, no threats, just that line. And I lost it. I yelled at the guy, told him he had no right to stay. And he yelled back. Loud. It was the first time. He got in my face, voice sharp, and I felt afraid. The kind of fear I never felt around my husband. He started changing, his jokes turned mean, his comments got personal. He'd say I was useless, that my kids hated me. And I believed him, because deep down, that's how I already felt. One night, he slammed his hand on the table and I flinched. He laughed, said I was too sensitive. But it wasn't funny anymore. I started sleeping with the light on, waiting for him to fall asleep first. I was scared, but I still thought maybe it was my fault, that I deserved it. So I called my ex, told him things between me and the guy weren't okay. He only asked one thing. "Is he touching the kids?" I said no. He hung up. I didn't know what I wanted from that call. Support? Advice? Some sign he still cared? I wasn't sure. I just needed someone to see me as a person again. A few weeks later, he hit me for the first time. We were just sitting in the kitchen. I was talking about my day, mentioned that I'd accidentally dropped his phone while cleaning, and in the next second, he hit me on the shoulder. Not hard, but hard enough to make me go quiet. He didn't even apologize, just muttered something like clumsy and walked off to the bedroom. I stayed where I was. Didn't cry, didn't yell. I just sat there, trying to understand what had just happened. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch in silence, thinking, what the hell am I doing here? My kids' faces kept flashing in my mind. And my husband's, well, ex-husband's. I thought about the arguments we'd had, how he used to lose his temper sometimes. But he never touched me in anger. Even when he was furious, even when I lied straight to his face. I convinced myself it was just a moment, a mistake. I had dropped the phone after all. Maybe I provoked it. Yeah, I really thought that way. Like it was something I had earned. Like this was just some weird version of paying for my mistakes. Like I deserved to hurt. And then it became normal. He got meaner, louder. The words started cutting deeper than the shove ever could. He called me names, said I was old, worthless, that my kids hated me. He started telling me what to wear, how to do my makeup, who I could talk to. And I stayed. Not because I loved him. I didn't. But because I felt broken and alone. Everything changed the day my daughter came home. The one who still lived with me. That day I knew he was in a bad mood. I told her to stay in her room. But she walked into the kitchen anyway, right when he started yelling again. She snapped back at him, said something like, "Don't talk to her like that." And he hit her, just like that. Open hand, no hesitation. She screamed. And I snapped. I shoved him. He lost it, started yelling again, came toward me fast. I grabbed my daughter and locked us both in the garage. He started pounding on the door with his fists. I was shaking. She called her dad. 5 minutes later, my ex pulled into the driveway. He didn't knock, just kicked the garage door open. I barely had time to say, "Don't kill him." He walked right past me like I wasn't there, went inside. I didn't see what happened. I only heard yelling, then screaming, then silence. When he came back out, he was dragging the guy by the collar like trash. Hauled him outside. His face stayed completely blank. No emotion. He didn't look at me. Didn't acknowledge I even existed. Put him in the car and drove him to the hospital. Told the doctors he fell down the stairs. And he stayed with him. I don't know what they talked about. But the next day, the guy quit his job and disappeared from my life. My ex didn't come back. He didn't text. He did what he had to do. And left. That's when the real loneliness started. After that, the house got so quiet I'd catch myself walking from room to room just to hear my own footsteps. The kids still lived with me, technically, but that was it. We barely talked. My younger son would only message me, even if I was just in the next room. My daughter, the one who used to support me at least a little, barely looked me in the eye anymore. And I got it. I really did. But it still hurt. I wasn't seeing anyone, I wasn't even looking. I got up, went to work, came home, reheated something basic, tried to keep the house in order. Everything else felt like it was happening behind glass. People, the street, life. It was all there, but I wasn't part of it. I was just floating through. The kids spent a lot of time at their dad's. His new girlfriend, our youngest son's English teacher, was kind and easygoing. They loved her. She had this lightness about her, the kind I hadn't had in a long time. She made pies, listened to them, laughed with them, and most importantly, she wasn't me. One day, they all came by to pick up my daughter's things. She was moving in with him. I stood in the doorway holding a bag with her sweater in it, watching my ex hug her and help load her bag. He looked calm, confident, happy. For the first time in a long time, I saw him genuinely happy, and it made me feel so empty I wanted to disappear. A few days later, he brought our youngest over. He'd gotten sick and wanted to be at home. For the first time in months, it was just the two of us in the kitchen. I thanked him. He nodded and said, "If anything happens, call. I'm always around. Not for you. For him." And then silence again. Not cold, just distant. I started going to work earlier, coming home later. My manager noticed I was basically running the department and promoted me. I didn't celebrate. I just accepted the new position and kept going. It kept me distracted. On weekends, I cleaned, cooked, tried to spend time with whatever kids were still around. But trust isn't something you can beg for. It's either there or it isn't. I remember one moment, I walked into my son's room and asked if he wanted dinner. He said, "Can you just leave it in the microwave?" And didn't look up from his screen. Not rude, just indifferent. And that somehow hurt the most. When they don't hate you anymore, they just feel nothing. I started writing in something like a journal, not because I planned to share it, just to get the thoughts out of my head. I wrote honestly about everything: that I was scared, that I missed him, that I still loved him even if he was with someone else, that I didn't know who I was anymore. And more than anything, I didn't know how to get myself back. It was his new wife who recommended the therapist. She actually called me after hearing I was starting to look rough again and said, "I know someone. She helped me once. Maybe she can help you too." I wanted to say no, just out of pride, but I didn't. I was in such a dark place that I couldn't afford to turn down any hand being offered. It wasn't the kind of therapy with soft chairs and breathing exercises. She spoke directly, no sugarcoating. At our first session, she said, "You don't have depression, you have guilt, and you're living with it like it's your best friend. But guilt is not your friend." I sat there, slouched, silent. For the first time in a long time, I listened without trying to defend myself. We talked about everything: the affair, the detachment, how easily I let other people shape how I saw myself, my marriage, my husband, how badly I wanted to feel like everyone else. Fun, young, wanted, and how I gave all of that away to people I barely even knew. I'd leave each session drained, but more alive than I'd felt in years. At one point, I said, "I want to fix things with my kids, all of them. I don't want to just be around them. I want to be close to them again." She suggested family therapy. I hesitated for a while, then finally called him. His voice was calm. "All right," he said, "for the kids." The first session was rough. The kids barely spoke. He didn't either. I was the only one talking about how sorry I was, how much pain I knew I'd caused, how I wasn't asking for anything except a chance to make it right. I looked at my son, the one who once called me a slut to my face, and he didn't look away. But he didn't say anything either. That alone felt like something. We went a few more times, and then he stopped. Said he couldn't do it anymore. That it was too much. I didn't try to argue. I could see it was still painful for him. He had already done more than he had to. I had no right to ask for more. So I decided to try something on my own. Took a few days off work, packed up the kids who were still living with me, and took them on a little trip. A small town, a cheap old hotel, a tiny diner with great pancakes. Nothing fancy. But on the drive there, we blasted music, sang along, argued about the playlist, and laughed. For the first time in a long time, I saw my son smile at me. Not sarcastically, just genuinely. We walked around, ate ice cream, rented a little boat. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. One evening, sitting by the lake, my daughter said, "Mom, it feels like you're one of us again." I didn't know what to say. I just hugged her and thought, maybe I could still be part of us. When we got home, I didn't have any illusions. I knew things weren't fixed, but it was a step. And for the first time in a long time, it was a step not toward him, but toward myself. About a month after that trip, I found out his girlfriend had left him, the same woman he started a new life with. My daughter mentioned it casually while slicing an apple in the kitchen. No emotion, just like any other fact she thought I might want to know. And I'm ashamed to admit it, but I felt hope. I thought, maybe this is a sign. Maybe we've both been through enough, and there's a chance to try again. I didn't say it out loud, not even to myself. But I started waiting. Every time he came over to fix something or pick up the kids, I paid attention. How he looked at me, whether he stayed a little longer than he needed to. And yes, he did start coming by more often. Sometimes he'd bring pastries the kids used to like. One time he stayed to fix a leaky faucet, and we ended up having tea. We talked. It was easy, calm. We laughed about something stupid. It felt dangerously familiar. I started cooking things he used to love, wearing old clothes he once bought me. I wanted him to notice, to feel something. One night, he stayed after the kids had gone to bed. We sat in the kitchen talking about work and our daughter who was preparing for college. And I did something I still regret. I leaned in and tried to kiss him. He didn't react violently, just gently pulled back and looked me straight in the eyes. No anger, no scene, just clarity. He said, I can't kiss you because your lips were on someone else. I can't hold you because you let someone else hold you. I can't share a bed with you because you slept with someone else while you were my wife." I couldn't say a word. I just cried. Not quiet tears, real, broken sobbing, like a kid. I kept whispering that I was sorry, that I understood, that I wasn't that person anymore, that I'd give anything to go back. But he just sat there, looking at me, silent. After a moment, he stood up, wiped his face with his sleeve, sighed, and said, "I'm not angry. I'm tired. I'm moving on. And you need to learn how to do that too." Then he left. He didn't come around for weeks after that. He even sent someone else to get the kids, his new girlfriend, the teacher. Turns out they were back together. And this time it was serious. They were expecting a baby, planning a wedding. When I found out, it crushed me. I was at work. I read the message from my daughter and just collapsed. A coworker helped me up, sat me down, brought me water. I kept repeating, "That's it. It's really over now." And then it let go, not all at once. But for the first time, I wasn't trying to rationalize it. I wasn't spinning hopeful stories in my head. I just accepted it. He wasn't mine anymore. And I wasn't his. And that this was the result of my choices. I won't say things suddenly got better after that. They didn't. It wasn't healing. More like the storm just started to fade. Like after a hurricane, when everything's still wet and broken, but at least you're not worried the roof is going to fly off. The silence felt less like punishment and more like rest. I worked a lot. More responsibilities in my department, more decisions, more numbers, and less space in my head for everything else. I started sleeping better, eating regularly. Sometimes I even laughed during meetings. People noticed. One coworker said, "You seem a little more alive lately." I just nodded. Things with the kids were slow, really slow, but real. My son, the one who used to avoid even looking at me, started asking for help with homework. One daughter sent me a meme. Another asked me for advice about a job interview. Nothing major. But each tiny thing felt like a breadcrumb in the desert. I treasured everyone. I stopped trying to rewind the past. I no longer waited for him to show up with pastries and stay for tea. I stopped wearing old dresses, stopped doing my makeup the way he liked it. I was just me, whoever was left. And little by little, I grew back. He still stopped by sometimes, dropped off the kids, brought over stuff they forgot, fixed a shelf, always polite, always calm, always at a distance. And I accepted that. No bitterness, no hoping. His wife came by more often, with the twins. They were tiny, with matching hats and sleepy smiles. She wasn't afraid of me, wasn't competitive. If anything, she was open. She talked to me, shared recipes, once even offered to carpool the kids together. And I didn't feel anger, just gratitude. She was the right person in his life, the right time. And I had finally accepted that. One Saturday morning, he came over, cleaned the house, made breakfast, and let me sleep in. Just like he used to. I woke up, walked into the kitchen, and everything was already done. The kids were eating pancakes. He stood at the stove, calm, steady, and I didn't cry. I just sat down and smiled. Later, I went into my room, opened the journal I'd been keeping for the past few months, and wrote, "I'm no longer waiting for him to come back." And that too is love for myself.